Okay, can we start now? Okay, already 9:35, so I think let's start. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this webinar on essential supervisory skills. So before that, um, is is there anyone having problem to hear me? Anyone? Everyone can listen? Can hear me? Okay. Yes. Okay. Good. Okay. So at least you can hear me. Okay, that's good. Thank you so much for for the clarification. Okay, before we start, maybe let's put what will be achieved at the end of this basically short session. Why cannot? So basically, I have only two things to reflect on your supervisory skill. Hopefully, based on whatever I'm going to share afterward, will be reflected, and then hopefully individually you can reflect on your own as well. Try to to compare what's your practice right now with what will be shared afterward. So perhaps it's kind of a reflective, kind of session. So perhaps you can ask and you can share your thought as well, as long as you wish. Because this session basically is a two-way session. I'm not going to see you basically because I I can only see my slides. But I hope if you have anything, you just speak up. No problem. And then the second one is about we are discussing about the essential supervisory skill based on the literatures as well as practices that has been reported. So hopefully these two things will be covered within hopefully less than 3 hours. But if you want more, then we can go up to 1 o'clock. So basically, the session will be more or less 3 hours, up to 12:30. But it's up to you if you want to extend to 1 o'clock. No problem. I'm okay with that. So before we start, perhaps I'm going to have a kind of just a small survey related to your um, experience. So perhaps can you see my? Okay, I think you can see, isn't it? Can let me put maybe minimize it better. Okay, so now I would like to request for everyone to go to menti.com, www.menti.com, as you can see on your screen, and use the code 7100105. So perhaps you can start now. Just a quick one. Okay, you have 30 respondents. Participants responded to this simple survey. So any more? Anyone else? Okay, so more or less, basically, majority of you basically have some experience related to supervision, so that's very good. But only maybe 10% or less is going yet to supervise students. Okay, now let's go to another one. So based on your experience, okay, based on your experience, or maybe based on whatever you have heard before, what stories or rumors have you heard about being supervisor? Okay, this you can type on the same code, on the same code, just type and then share your thoughts. And don't worry, it's completely anonymous. Okay, so unless you want to put your name after your comment, and then it's not going to be anonymous anymore. So perhaps I give you about 5 minutes just to think, and then you can write your thoughts, your stories, rumors, whatsoever that you think you want to share on the screen. Okay, you'll be doing your postgraduate all over again. Okay. Okay, good experience. Format and grammar. Okay, not always supportive. Okay. Supervisor not responsible in supervising postgraduate students. Hmm. Good experience. Supervising international students is more difficult, tough, but you learn a lot. Some students can be troublesome at times. There's any more stories or rumors, okay, or your own experience over always busy? Okay, sounds like me. Supervisor expect too much from students. Not all students are the same. My friend never finished his PhD because of supervisor factor. Nothing special to share. So far, so good. Experience. Okay, busy. Got to be firm, be empathy. Current student, strawberry generation, easily crushed. Okay, my experience, supervisor were very supportive emotionally and financially. I'm not really here for study as we deal with examiners to fail a postgraduate student. Okay. There's any more that you would like to share? We still have time, about 2 to 3 minutes. Not rumors, no framework for monitoring student progress, no structure to motivate student at USM level. As we take advantage of student work. Okay. Yes, any more? Many issues depend on university policy about supervision. However, supervisors seem to get done to work quickly with efficient effort. They also want the students to assist research work a bit more than students on work. Okay, my supervisor is very responsible to his student and very supportive, and also always give more support to his student. Okay, that's very positive experience. So as a criticize and give comments, not giving constructive feedback during thesis writing process. When you become a SAV, you also learn alongside your students. Yes, you have about 1 minute to go. Any last sharing stories or rumors or your own experience of being supervisor? Have another minute. Okay, I think thank you so much for sharing your your stories, rumors, or your own experience. Let's go back to this one. Okay, now we have done just now, your experience, and you have shared your stories and experience with everyone just now. Now, I would like you to just reflect on 10 statements. You just need to answer yes or no. That's all. Okay, so you can read from 1 to 10 and reflect on your own. And then perhaps you can use small paper maybe. You put yes or no, yes or no. Okay, so I will give you another 5 minutes or 5 minutes maybe not too short, but maybe okay. Let's go for 10 minutes. One statement, 1 minute, for you to reflect upon your own experience. Okay. Then after 10 minutes, I will ask you to calculate the index for your supervision. Okay, 10 minutes begin. If you have done, let me know. Can you have another 5 minutes? So everyone done? Hmm. New page did not appear. Oh, okay. Uh, uh, New page did not appear. Done. Everyone done? Okay, let me see whether it's done or not done. Let me change to the next page. So basically what you need to do now, you just total up number of yes. So out of, okay, you already know how to do it. Okay, just total up the sum of yes. How many you got yes, and then vote on the screen through menti.com, and let's see how. Okay. Okay. Oh, basically I mute. Oh, sorry. I just unmute myself. No wonder no response. I'm talking alone. Okay, so let's start again. Okay, so based on the statistics, what we can learn from here? Anyone? Based on the statistic now, 73% is basically in a high supervisory skill level. And we have a moderate, 5 to 7, and 5 basically is progressing. So anyone would like to share your own thoughts based on this finding? And remember, this one is a perceive. There's a perceive rating. So your self-rating basically. Anyone like to share your thoughts? Verbally, you can talk, Don't worry. You don't have to type always because we are ready to supervise. Okay. Why you all like to write? We are trying our best to be a good SV for our students. We are ready to supervise. Wani, can they talk or you don't allow them talk? You are ready to supervise. Okay.
They can talk later.
Oh, they can talk, but they choose not to talk. Okay. So yes, guys, anything that you like to share your thoughts based on this finding? 70% above. I mean that quite high. Majority of you having a high level of supervisory skill. And then perhaps I also interested to know your expectation from this workshop. Since you are very experienced, not very experienced, basically your skills relatively high, okay, based on the index. Maybe if you can share your expectation from this workshop will be very interesting. So yes, anyone you like to share yours?
Assalamualaikum and good morning.
Yeah, morning.
Dr. Rusnani here.
Yes.
Okay. Looking at the question just now, the 10 things that supervisors supposed to have,
Mm-hmm.
like, because like I've been supervisor since 2012. So
Okay.
perhaps when I started off, I might not have all these yes,
Okay.
So, but then as time goes by and you learn, you improve. So perhaps now it's kind of 8, 9, 10. So I think, and this is from your point of view, and also some student you remember. So perhaps, some student it might be, 5 or 6, because supervisor and supervisee, you have this professional, but you do also have a little bit of personal relationship sort of. So those that come to see you more often, ask you question, take your advice, perhaps you see them, you are more willing. But those that really, like when they see you, they run away to the other side, or when you call them, they not answer you or something like that. So even though you try to be professional, but it might not be as good as those that are willing to, be good with you as well. Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Rosnani, for sharing your thoughts. Anyone else that you like to share your thoughts based on the finding just now? Anyone? Or maybe you like to write. Let me see what you are writing. So we think we are ready, but we might not be. Okay. Most of us try our best to be good SB, but that's from our point of view. How about our supervisees? Okay, so that's very good. Yes, any last comment based on this initial exercise that we did just now? Okay, no more. Okay. I believe that Dr. Rosnani already captured all the all the thoughts from our colleague. Okay, now let's start. Let's start. Why? Okay, okay, now let me share with everyone the 10 essential supervisory skill based on the Richard and James, as well as I just modify a little bit based on my experience as well. Limited experience, not so vast experience, but I'm trying to share in context, okay, based on the 10 essential supervisory skill. So now let's go to the first supervisory skill. Okay, now the first supervisory skill is to support growth and well-being of our supervisees. And perhaps this is something that we always trying to do our best, and particularly based on Dr. Rosnani mentioned just now. Yes, we try our best to support the growth and well-being of our supervisee in terms of, one is the professional development just now, and the other one is when we give feedback to them, we're trying to emphasize on their strength, and maybe sometimes we give a constructive feedback as well to them on how they can improve as a supervisee. And perhaps something that I would like to share in this point on how do we support growth and well-being of our postgraduate students. So one of the thing that I think I like to do is to have a proper discussion at the beginning of when they start to register. For example, let's say they register today. So maybe next week I will call them and then have a professional plan for their study. So basically we chart the PhD journey or maybe the master journey. For example, let's say their expectation, different students have their different expectation. For example, in my case, I have 10 PhD students as a main supervisor, and one student said that, I'm going to complete my PhD within 2 years. That's the expectation. And one PhD student said that, no, I'm going to finish, maybe I just want to enjoy the learning, so I'm going to finish within 5 years. That is a full time. And if you're looking at the student part-time, they say, no, I'm not going to be so rushed, so I'm going to take my time. Maybe 7 years is okay to me, and many more, So when we are talking to them, trying to support their growth according to their pace, so we have a different expectation from different students. So this is something that is quite challenging to us as a supervisor on how to chart based on the expectation. And I still remember one of the candidate telling me that I'm going to do it within 3 years, but you need to discuss with my husband. See, you need to discuss with your husband, and before, even during the planning, the husband come to the office and discuss together the wife, the supervisor, on how we can plan. So this is something, sometimes up to that level, the husband come to the picture to plan their professional journey. Okay, and that is the first time I met her husband. Her husband, Arab lah tu. Not Arab, is local. It's a local student. Definitely is a local student. Then can you imagine if you put put your place as a supervisor, who are one of your student husband come to you and planning to you, I'm not a doctor. They ask very simple question. Doctor, do you think my wife will complete in 3 years of a PhD? So if you were the supervisor, what do you think? How are you going to respond to the husband's question? Anyone you like to share your thoughts? If now you are the supervisor, for example, and then the husband come to you, and the wife definitely lah, because the wife basically your students, and the husband said, do you think my wife will be completing the PhD within 3 years, doctor? There's anything that you like to respond? Let me see. The chat is up to her. You have to give her all the support you need. Okay. Anyone would like to speak? Because reading the chat just like reading my WhatsApp. It will depend on her. You have as well. Okay. Okay. Anyone before that? Anyone have similar, similar experience? Anyone have similar experience? Maybe or even even more interesting experience compared to me. Yeah, family support definitely. Yes, because we are talking about support growth and well-being of our candidates. Sometimes that's happened. About student who claim depressed. Okay. Anyone else? You can talk. Don't worry. You can talk. With the situation. Okay. Now, perhaps let me share what did I respond to the husband. The first thing that I told to myself, I need to be truthful to the husband. One is basically I tell them their PhD journey is about for the full time 2 to 5 years. So I just put it in the frame according to our framework. So basically PhD is within 2 to 5 years. Okay. And then the second part I said to the husband, basically, what do you think? Do you think your wife will be able to complete in 3 years from your perspective as husband? I asked them back. I asked the husband back. Do you think your wife will be able to complete in 3 years? So basically, the husband said, depend. The husband said, it depend, doctor. So said that depend, doctor. So then I will ask more to the husband. So what do you mean by depend? So we would like to share with me, because depend is so broad. So what do you mean depend? And then he said that because my wife is a housewife, one thing, and then the other thing is she is working as well in the private university, and then the private university, the time is basically just they are not going to allow for any of the staff to use the office hour to do something else, because every single cent will be counted for the university activity. So that definitely in office hour, my wife won't be having so much time for PhD. And then the second part, and after office hour, our kids, they said our kids, we have 3 kids. So all of them are growing as well. And they are in the form, in the, we call it SPM, PMR, UPSR, the money. And definitely the mother always taking care after the office hour. So basically, looking at all those commitments, my wife basically no time. Then I asked him, then do you think she should pursue PhD? So this is another question. Sometimes, we discuss with the husband, one of the example for family member, and then the husband said the only thing is, she has to sacrifice. She has to quit from the job, become full-time students. However, the impact will be on our family financial. So do you have any, for example, scholarship for my wife and many more? So they are talking about the financial support to support the wife, at least financially, half, maybe not fully, but half maybe. So at least it reduce the family burden in terms of, on the financial aspect. So there are many things. This is one of the example that we as a supervisor need to consider, because supporting the growth and well-being from the beginning is very much important. Otherwise, if the first thing in terms of the growth and well-being couldn't be supported by us or by family, so the the journey of PhD of candidate might be at risk, particularly in this situation. This is one of the examples why the first thing we need to consider our candidate well-being and how do we support their growth along the way of the PhD journey. And this is something that I frequently do when I got a new student. I will discuss about the professional development plans ahead, because sometimes during that time you encounter a lot of interesting things that as a supervisor need to consider. Otherwise, we will advise the candidates to have a different plan. And sometimes we need to discuss with relevant people who are supporting our candidates. For example, just now, the husband. Okay, so this is one of the example that I can share with you. Do you have anything from your own experience so far in relation to this first skill? Do you have any interesting that we can learn from your experience? Students who claim they are slightly depressed with their situation. Siapa tanya ni Muhamad Hekal. Hekal, would you like to explain more about your question? What do you mean by this? Mana Hekal ni? Hekal? Oh, Hekal. Ada kat situ ke?
Dr. Saiful?
Yes.
I'm not Haikal, but...
yes, yeah, Hekal.
No, I'm not Haikal.
Oh, you're not Hekal. Okay, sorry. Okay.
No, just to share something.
Okay. Go on.
No, I think when supervising students, it's better to, like you say, keep a professional relationship. So academic relationship, that means what I do normally is that I don't deal with the family members.
Oh, you don't deal with the family members?
I don't want to see their mothers or their fathers or their husband or their wives. I make it a point. I only talk to the student. You go they go and deal with their own issues. Sometimes sometimes the husband or the wife will come together in discussion. I say no, I will only speak with the candidate, with the student. So please excuse us for a while we discuss the topic or the area or whatever it is, the research.
Okay, so you from your point of view, basically you're trying to make a clear line, isn't it, between your family matters and academic matters?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. That's good. That's quite interesting point. Okay. Do you have anything else?
No, that's all. Just want to share something.
Thank you for sharing. What about others? Do you think? What do you think? Based on the first one, because support growth and well-being, there's any other thoughts that you might have a different, the way of you see things from point of supporting growth and well-being of our supervisees? No more? Or maybe you haven't yet have that kind of experience.
No, Dr. Saiful, I think this is a new generation of participants all prefer to chat than speak.
Okay, so you prefer to chat because we use a lot of WhatsApp and line. Okay, never mind. Let's go on. That is a kind of example of support growth and well-being, and that depend on your preference as well as a supervisor, because there are certain supervisors who are willing to, to listen, because when we are talking about well-being, it's not about the individual, it's about the surrounding as well, because sometimes um, we talk about well-being, and then we talk about something that is affecting the well-being, and if you think that you can support, definitely you are most welcome to do that. But if you think that you want to draw a line, I think that's something that you need to clearly mention during the first meeting with the supervisor, so that the supervisor have a clear idea about what are your expectations on them throughout the PhD journey, or maybe the master journey. I think that will be, win-win situation as well, depending on your agreement during the professional planning lah, basically during that time.
Okay, from Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Yeah.
This is Haikal here.
Yes,
I
Michael.
was the one who was sharing about the students being depressed with the situation.
Mhm.
In my case, how do you, because you mentioned about drawing the line early on, because currently I have a few students that is going through some personal issues during their research. Some are doing quite okay, but some of them are actually not coping quite well. The thing is, like, how do I actually draw the line, saying that, we are only here as a supervisor, not, we cannot provide advice beyond, like, to solve certain problems in their lives. I mean, because I think I tried that with one of the students, and that student actually became like more attached, and they keep messaging, keep emailing, sharing all of their problems instead of, sharing their progress of their research. So when I got new students, I stopped doing that. I sort of focused more, like what Mrs. Sodi has mentioned. I started focusing more on just the research instead of, exploring or trying to understand what's the situation. But the thing is like, I'm not sure, because I'm quite, I wouldn't say quite new, but I'm still learning. But I'm not quite sure how do I actually draw that line when you say, in the first meeting you should state clearly that, this is what the relationship between supervisee and supervisor is. So I'm not quite sure about that.
Okay.
You can
So,
advise for that? Yeah.
yeah, maybe I can share my own experience lah, basically. I have an experience with a candidate, basically, who are psychologically not well, psychologically not well, and the candidate have official report from the medical doctors, and then that candidate always focus on problems rather than the progress. Just like you told, the candidate always come to see us, not telling the progress, but telling the problems. The problems that really hampered their progress. So this is something is very challenging. So what we did as a team, because remember, when we are supervising, we have a team of supervisor, isn't it? We are not alone, basically. So we have maybe usually, for depending on the level of supervision. So for PhD, usually 3 supervisors. So what we did, basically, one, we listen first, because whatever it is, we need to listen, because sometimes by listening, it will reduce the burden of the candidates. But what we focus on, we're trying to acknowledge that, okay, we understand your problems. Okay, we understand your problems. Okay, we really, love to have that kind of problem, but maybe ask them which problem that really impact or hampered your academic progress. We are not interested in all your problem, because some are very personal, very family, and not related to academic matters. But anything, from your point of view, that you are telling us that hampered your academic progress, that's something that we are interested to listen. Otherwise, the rest of the problem, maybe you can describe your family, your other relevant members, so that we can save our time to focus on your progress. This is something that we did as a team. As a team, we decided, yes, we just want to listen anything problem that hampered their PhD journey, which is the academic problem. The rest, we are not interested. So we are telling the candidate like that, and very fortunately, the candidate understand. And then the subsequent supervision meeting, supervisory meeting, they just focus on something that really hampered them. For example, let's say they are telling the truth, I do not have time, basically because one, at home, I'm handling the whole thing, and at work, I'm handling the office thing. So how can I find time? So what we did, basically, we issue official letter from department to have official supervisory meeting to the head department from the institution. This kind of support that we can give to our students when we understand their problem related to the academic. Because of time. So the candidate said, when we ask the candidate, so what we can do to help you to have the time. So, and one of the example what we did as a team and as a department as well, we send official letter, and then we put all the a schedule that the candidate must be in the campus. We send the letter to the head of department of that particular candidate, so that to allow the candidate to come to the campus within the schedule. So when we put that schedule, the candidate have time. So that is something example of we are not interested in all things of the candidates, but we are very selective. Only thing that we can help them based on what hamper the journey as a PhD candidate. The example that what we did lah, basically. Okay, so basically we are not interested in all problems, but we only interested in problem that hamper the students' PhD or master journey. So this is my, if I can share with you, that is our experience basically dealing with that kind of candidates. Okay. Or maybe any other, you can chat, you can put on the chat lah, basically. I hope that, that one of the sharing of experience dealing with that kind of students. Hopefully that useful. Okay.
Yes, Prof. Thank you.
Okay. Hopefully that's useful. But I don't know how are you going to do that. But the most important thing is try to listen to the candidate first, and then draw a line. During the meeting. Draw a line, and then spell it clearly what you can do and what you cannot do. That is something that I used to to tell to the candidate. And in fact, one of the candidates said there is no time. So I said, if you have no time, I am really sorry because I cannot provide my time to do your work. Because it's about your time. Your time is just like a fuel for a car. For example, let's say you are driving a car to somewhere. Just like say that a car is your car for your journey. If you don't put the time, which is the fuel, the car won't move. You still have the car, as a PhD student, but the car is not moving. It's not moving because you didn't put the fuel, the time. And when fuel is not there, the car is not moving, so you will be static. And when you become static, unfortunately, static is something not good for PhD journey, because you won't progress, and times goes by, but you still in the way you are from the original plan. So I think be clear with them lah, basically. And most of the candidate that so far understand it and take it as a positively lah, basically. So that is one of the experience. Perhaps other people can interrupt me if you have a better way of dealing with, or maybe helping and supporting our supervisor in that sense. Okay, now let's go to number 2. So if we have anything, we can go back. And as far as I'm concerned, I think it does not matter how slowly you go, as long as you do not stop. Everything needs time. This is something that I always emphasize on my candidates, that whatever it is, you need to move on. And then please spare some time, because if you stop, nothing can help you. But as long as you do not stop, you keep moving, so you will reach your destination in your own pace. So it's up to you how fast and how far you want to go. But definitely you are the one, and time is very much needed to ensure that you are keep moving. They mean that you keep progressing. Okay, now then if you're looking at time, I think as I mentioned just now, basically we need to to understand our candidate in terms of life balance. If they are not, basically those are mature students who have career, there are a lot of responsibility. Just one of the example I give quite, extreme just now, when the husband come and then the candidate is a wife and a career mother as well. So responsibilities is real, and there are a lot of things they have to do in one time, and everybody only have 24 hours. And definitely the other part is personal and professional development. I think there is another thing that we need to be clear with our candidates. Once the candidates are very clear with this, and usually the candidate will, will have a better strategies on how to put time wisely, because time is very limited. Either supervisor time or maybe the candidate time. Both, both individuals are busy in a way. Okay. Okay. Couldn't talk as I'm work from home. Background sound suara anak-anak. Okay, no problem. Okay, don't worry. We understand that. Okay, now number 2. Okay, now this is number 2. One is about support growth and well-being. The second part is unite with your team. So basically, as I mentioned just now, we have uh, a team of supervisors as well as students. And then this is something that how are you going to ensure that we are approachable, available, accessible to supervisor? Is one is open door policy. Basically, we are open to to any suggestion, to any feedback, and then in fact they also have a kind of professional relationship between the supervisor and the supervisees. So anything that, as we discussed, we need to draw a line between what we have in common, what we have, something that is unique to each other. And sometimes people say that we have to say that there is something that I don't like, do's and don'ts, basically, the do and don'ts and many more. So this is basically we need to be transparent enough to our candidate to ensure that both sides having similar expectation, having good understanding to each other, so that there will be less conflict. There will be conflict along the way, definitely, but at least we trying to minimize the conflict as much as possible between the supervisors, and then supervises conflict as well. And then the second part, perhaps there is something that is recommended to have regular one-on-one supervisory meeting. Even though we have a kind of team supervisory meeting, but having regular one-on-one supervisory meeting between main supervisor as well as with the candidate would be a very recommended way. And looking at reflecting back on my experience on this note, basically I learned a lot from the candidates once we have a regular one-on-one supervisory. And right now, I think we have so many facilities, particularly the online facilities. We can always schedule our one-on-one supervisory meeting to online. But it's always good to have, if it is allowed and you have time, go out for a dinner, or maybe a chit chat, very unofficial kind of supervisor meeting. And then what I learned from both approach, the official one and then the unofficial one, I learned more about the candidates when we have the unofficial supervisory meeting, particularly over lunch or dinner or anything. That is not official because they are more truthful and they are more, I think, giving us a lot more information about the progress. Sometimes they talk about something that is they didn't mention in the official one, but they mentioned during the unofficial one. And that particular issues are very, very important in, in their journey. For example, let's say one of my candidates said that during the official one, because everything is, basically not in office and many more, sometimes they're afraid of, being so official. So they don't talk so much. And then not so much thing the student telling us. For example, one candidate said that during the unofficial one, basically, doctor, I do not know how to do literature review properly. But during the official one, everything, okay, doctor, no problem. I can do this. I can do this. Everything can do. But during the unofficial one, maybe they forgot we are still the main supervisor. They said, doctor, we need to have a crash course on how to do a proper literature review because most of us, for example, just reflecting, no, not only me, say the other friend also having problem with the proper literature review, particularly in writing introduction, and then as well as the chapter number 2. We are so confused. See, that kind of information I didn't get during the official one in the office, but the unofficial one, they tell us just like we are friends. And then we are picking up, okay, there is something that we need to to have more discussion or maybe a session with them. And based on the feedback, I did, somehow do a crash course with them for 1 week. Crash course with all the students under my supervision about how to write or how to do a proper literature review. Just based on the feedback. Now we know that there is very fundamental issues that my students having difficulties in that sense. And I learned that during that one as well. When I was, initially supervise a master or PhD student, I always think that they know already something and they are not novice. But unfortunately, my assumption is not correct. Basically, once they come here, basically most of them are novice in the sense that they are in the new area. And I learned a lot during one-on-one supervisor meeting based on the feedback just now. And that increased my, my understanding about, okay, I cannot assume they know everything and I cannot assume they didn't know everything. But just need to have a right target on what issues related to the PhD journey that will, sometimes if you don't intervene as supervisor, don't help them, that will results in unwanted consequences after that. For example, just now, a very simple thing, proper literature review. So basically, there is something that I pick up from one-on-one supervisor meeting. Otherwise, I don't realize it. I just blaming them. Why you didn't keep the literature review properly? Why you always we blame them? Why you didn't learn properly? Why is not in in the format and many more? But basically they don't know how to do proper literature review. As simple as that. Okay, and then the other one, based on that, regular feedback to supervisor. Usually in our practice, usually supervisor give feedback to student. That is the normal thing. Usually supervisor give feedback to the students. But in this sense, the feedback came from the supervisor to supervisor. And with the online things now, because we have e-form, Google Form, and many form, so perhaps just to share, this is some now is more advanced, not more advanced, basically more systematic. Because previously I asked them to do it verbally, and in return, just take a piece of paper and then write about this thing. For example, how can I improve my supervision, guidance, support, and accessibility for my future improvement as supervisor. So basically, this is verbally, But now with the technology, when I started to use it the beginning this year, I just transfer whatever I did in the past manually, but now I convert to the e-form, and I learned a lot from them, definitely. And then they are more transparent because the e-form is basically anonymous. You know, basically it's anonymous. Example, oh sorry. For example here, this is the form. This is basically the main form that I shared to them. Okay, so basically I asked them, you know, can you share your best experience? Can you share your worst experience under me? You know, can you share personal advice? And then what is or are the best quality, attribute, character value that I should maintain as supervisor? And let me share the response, because so far I just did it. I just got 13 response so far from, because I just have a 16 PhD student, 30 not responding. But if we are looking at the feedback, you know, for example, let's go to, this is just example, just sharing, because it's basically anonymous. See, when it's everything is anonymous online, they give you answer that, you know, from their perspective based on their experience with us. So, and then looking at the worst experience, okay. So see, he is busy. Yeah, one of the candidates said the supervisor is super busy and do not have time, but no, they put it in a polite way. Okay, they receive minimal response. I think, yeah, this is something that's really strike me, because there are certain candidates, because you know, because sometimes you do not have time, you just said okay, okay, thank you, everything okay, everything good. So just a minimum response, but basically there's a worse experience for a candidate. So from that moment, when we're looking at, okay, when they're looking at this, and that they give to us, it means that they want more response. It's not just thank you, noted, and so on and so forth. So perhaps there is something that we can learn. And sometimes we do not realize something that we did that helped them. For example, yeah, keep smiling and keep saying never mind, as you always say. There is something that sometimes ease them by saying, okay, never mind, we try another way, we find an alternative option or whatsoever. So this is something that you can see that from the student perspective. So what sort of values that you need to maintain as a supervisor? So all this basically give input to us to become a better supervisor. Not the best, but at least a better one, because we still keep learning and improving ourselves from time to time. And every students have a unique experience, and definitely getting feedback from them is I think is very valuable input to us for becoming a better supervisor for the future candidate. So we keep learning from the student as well, you know. Yeah, so far I think any one of you would like to share your own experience regarding this second point, unite with your team. There's anyone? They just sharing experience based on the second skills, which is we need to be as a team player, no, even in our supervision. Yes, anyone would like to share yours? Let's put a chat. Okay. Perhaps we can help them provide the right channel for feedback too, but I still think they are shy to share their own and honest opinion. Okay, so perhaps things get better and better after they have an experience giving feedback to us. Okay, so if no one like to interrupt, so allow me to go to the third skills. which is praise others. So this one, I think as a supervisor, sometimes it's good, to praise our candidates who did a good job. Okay, and perhaps either you want to go for formal or informal, is up to you. But basically, is no harm for you to say something, good about them in front of them, particularly in front of others. Sometimes what I did, if they are doing very well, so you can always celebrate with them, bring them somewhere, or maybe do something that's just to recognize their efforts that they have done really, really good in their journey. Because sometimes a word of encouragement with failure is worth more than an hour of praise after success. And this is very, very important. Even though our candidates, are not progressing well, okay, even though our candidates are not progressing very well, but sometimes it's always to keep a positive word with them. For example, one of the international students, not one, a few, a few of our international students give a lot of um, sharing about the difficulty, particularly in the current situation, the COVID. They feel that they are very slow compared to others. They say that they are not yet progressed because they couldn't follow the timeline that already planned in the beginning, and then a lot of things that has been we call it a lot of things has been drawback. A lot of things had not been done properly. But sometimes when we give a very positive word to them, just a small encouragement. For example, okay, let's replan. What is workable with you? For example, let's say the plan A, basically, this is the first plan that we did in the beginning of when they're registering. And then what we did is basically, okay, now let's look at your plan and how we are going to modify your plan so that you are able to progress. And then let's get a consensus between you and me, because as a supervisor, I need to have a clear idea as well. Where are you going to do? Where are you going to go? And then based on that, let's have something that concrete. So based on that, sometimes with that kind of just small encouragement by replanning and modify their plan, that is give a motivation already to them. And sometimes candidates only need to see the supervisors, okay, because though we think that the meeting is not is normal to us, but for certain candidate, by talking and communicating, so that is already boost the motivation. Okay, and definitely I learned that keep smiling to candidate, even though the candidates have a lot of difficulty to be handled. For example, let's say you have problematic students, that the students is very challenging to handle, but if you keep smiling, that smile will give a lot of relief to the candidate, and sometimes it will soften the heart of the candidate to follow our advice. But there are certain candidate, or whatever you do, it's not working. There are certain candidates like that as well. But always trying to give a positive encouragement to them, despite of their failure. Despite of their failure to follow whatever plan that we already agreed in the beginning. So on this note, do you have anything to share or maybe to ask? No? Okay. If no, then the fourth thing, okay, we have discussed about we support growth and well-being. And then we have to be part of the team. We mean that we need to unite with the team. And then we need to really really to be more generous, giving a positive word to our candidates. And the fourth one is we need to set high expectation appropriately to supervisory. So I think it is something that we really need to put on our candidates, okay? Because if you put a low expectation on them, it might not working good because the pressure is not so good to move them, you know. But if you put a high expectation appropriately, because they are the certain, for example, PhD, you need to do 1, 2, 3. This is the expected thing that you need to do as a PhD candidate, or maybe master candidate as well. These are the expected thing that you need to do as a master candidate in the field, and so on and so forth. But we need to put the descriptions clearly. And then the most important is to give regular feedback to them, because feedback has a very powerful effect on learning. And perhaps if you're looking at feedback and criticism, if you can recall one of the comments from your stories just now, from your explain just now, is the supervisor basically criticized and did not give constructive feedback to the candidate. That's lead to unwanted, ramification on the students' behaviors, motivation, and desires to go on with the learning journey. But if you are looking at how can we differentiate between feedback and criticism, usually feedback, the focus is to improve performance in a positive way. It means that we are trying, we are not basically unload our anger to the candidate. We talk calmly, professionally, and then we know what are the issues. We are not touching the personal thing, but basically we are very tough on the issues related to their project or maybe the academic matters. And we always look at the solution part. If you're the feedback, you are looking at the solution part rather than we are putting blame on the candidates. We look for solution. And usually the feedback is two ways. We are not talking alone. Okay, basically we are also listening to our candidates if they have any other thoughts that maybe their thoughts have some ground that we need to consider. Because sometimes during the session when we give feedback to the students, sometimes we overlook something. Examples that I can give from my own experience is basically just a simple thing. Because we are using technology, now we are using the track change. We give feedback on their thesis. Basically, we put on the track change and we put the comment, isn't it? So when we give a comment, we put everything there. We put a red color, so many other colors, and then we text with a comment, and we send back to the students. And suddenly, when we receive the revision, it seems that the student didn't do anything. Okay, didn't do anything after we give the feedback on the thesis writing, and then come up with almost nothing. And then we send back to the second one. We highlight, we highlight to the candidates. You didn't address our feedback. Okay. So we send back to them. Okay, please, please revise properly. Please revise properly. And then after that, come back. The student say, okay, we already revised. No, the student said, yes, I'm already revised according to your suggestion. Then the second one, still not much revision, because there are so many others. There are so many other comments that we put on the site was not addressed by the candidate. And as a team of supervisor, we are quite quite disappointed lah. Basically, it's already irritated lah with the candidate, and the candidate is from international candidate. Then though the atmosphere in the team of supervisor looks not so positive, because they're quite angry with the candidate, because several times already still the same thing. Then I decided to have online meeting because the candidate is already in, in the country, just writing the thesis. Online meeting, and then I asked the candidate, okay, can you show me your your words, and then can you show me the comments? And then after that discussion, then I realized, the candidates could not access our comment. So I realized somehow because of computer incompatibility, because different words, maybe are using Mac or maybe using different spec. The students couldn't see the comment that we make, we jot down through the review, the review function of the words. They say, candidate show it to me. Okay, doctor, where is your comment? This is all your comment. Yeah, already did. I said, there is a comment. There are many comments that we make in the review notes, but the candidate could not see because of the technical problem due to the software. Then we realized, okay, basically, the student have some difficulties and issues with the compatibility of software. Even though it's similar, but somehow the student cannot see. Then we said, okay, never mind. We will send back into PDF, and then in the PDF you can see everything. In the PDF you can see everything, because when we convert into PDF, all the comments will appear on the right side. So then after that, the student did revision, and then the revision according to our comments. So the lesson is, if we didn't give feedback, we just criticize the students. Maybe we got basically a wrong idea about the students, and the student as well will get wrong idea about the supervisor. Because why? Because if we criticize, it's only one way. But if you aiming for feedback, basically we need to discuss with student why the students did not revise accordingly. And fair enough, it's not due to supervisors or due to the candidate, basically due to the software. So the lesson that I learned until now, due to that particular incident, I will always ask the student, if let's say I receive the revised versions that has not done properly and that has not done according to our comments as a team, and then we will sit down with the candidates and ask them, can you see our comments on the Microsoft Word on the review panel? So because we commented everything on that. So that is a lesson that we learn basically as a team, and particularly for myself as a main supervisor, to not jump into conclusion until we got a two-way communication with the candidates because of the feedback. Because our aim is not to blame, but our aim is to look for solution. If anything happen, we want to make it as as better as possible. So that is kind of feedback and criticism. Now, okay, now let me illustrate in that sense. So basically, there's a feedback. So for example, the blue line is basically your desired outcome. Just take an example of, we want the student to revise according to our comment just now. Okay, for example, now, and then when we give feedback, basically we need to know where is the students, where they are basically. So every student, for example, it's student 1, student 2, student 3, every student have their different starting point when we start to give a task or maybe comment. So basically, maybe there are students who are advanced, who have experience, have a lot of exposure to certain things, particularly research. There may be the gap between the desired outcome as what we want as compared to the capability is small. But there are certain students are very novice. This is the first time they are doing research. This is the first time they are exposed to that kind of research in the field, and definitely the gap will be wider as compared to the candidate number 1 just now, and so on and so forth. So basically, understanding where they are in the first place before we give feedback is very important, because with that we know that how we are going to close the gaps through our feedback. Now, then we need to ensure that whatever the information we give to the candidates will improve, the student understanding what they are now and what the actual desired state or outcome that we want from them. That's why we need to have a regular feedback, because through regular feedback, we know the progress of the students from what they were before and what they are now and what they will be in the next phase. Okay, this is something that feedback is all about. Is always, trying to close the gaps, and hopefully the student will be in the desired outcome that are expected from them. Okay, and basically feedback is closing the gap. So this is something that we really need to always keep in our mind as a supervisor. When we want to give feedback, give constructively, because constructive feedback will close the gap. And by closing the gap, basically we are helping the student and facilitating the student to reach the destination, which is the desired outcome as a maybe PhD student, master student, undergraduate student, or whatsoever student that you have under your supervision. So this is very important. Okay, and then maybe I would like to share with you what are the feedback areas that we need to focus. How to close this one? Why is appear like that? So there are 4 feedback areas basically. One is about the task. We can focus our feedback on the task. How well tasks are understood or performed by our candidates. This is one area that we can always, dwell with. And then the second part is about the process, because sometimes the task, have you achieved the task or not? But sometimes due to the process, the main process needed to understand or perform the task. How are they able to do the process? This is another area of feedback. And then the other part is about the self-regulation. What's next? Self-monitoring, directing, and further action. What further improvement. So this is another area that we can always give feedback. And these are the area as well, but we need to do it properly about the self, personal. Personal evaluation affect about the student. And why is right? Because it is not usually recommended to touch on the personal thing, particularly our personal feeling about the candidates, our personal evaluation, but unless it is so necessary, unless they are so necessary. Let's see examples of the task. For example, do you manage to write the chapter 5? There is an example, a very simple example. So that is, we want to see, have you done or you have not done? So basically, performing and achieving the task. If the process, do you know how to write discussion in chapter 5? So this is from my own experience. Basically, students having a lot of a lot of difficulties to write chapter 5. Chapter 5 basically discussion, and they tend to report the result rather than discuss the result. So this is something that maybe if you are looking at the feedback, maybe you can ask this kind of question. This is just an example. And then self-regulation, for example, let's say the student said, okay, yes, I have something, but I'm not very clear. So we can motivate them by what else do you need to learn to facilitate your chapter 5 writing? So this kind of feedback as well. So maybe we may suggest to them, okay, why not you go to this workshop? Why not you go to this workshop? And perhaps this workshop is very good for you to learn about how to write discussion in thesis. So this is self-regulation, self-monitoring, something that we can ask them to facilitate their journey. But try not to ask this kind of question. Do you know, during my PhD time, I wrote my thesis on my own. I don't even bother my supervisor and blah, 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 blah. Or maybe during in university in A, B, C, D, E, F, G, I'm blah, 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 blah. So this is something that our personal thing, try to impose to our candidate and let them try to do it what we did before. And this is something that is commonly happen, unfortunately. But if you know that every individual, remember, I showed to you just now, every individual have their starting point, have a certain level of exposure, there's certain ability. There are certain people are gifted with a very good ability in terms of the intellectual, in terms of the EQ, IQ, and so many things. But there are certain students are not, having that kind of gift. They need to learn in a very hard way. They need to learn on their own, and sometimes they need a lot of guidance. So perhaps try not to put your feedback in this area so much. Try to emphasize on these three areas: task, process, and what else you can do. Rather than personal, for example, you are not, um, something that you look so terrible, I don't think that you will pass the exam because you you cannot even write your thesis on your own and many more. So something, this kind of personal attack on our candidates, trying to avoid as much as possible, because it's really affect the student motivation, and sometimes it give a lot of emotional disturbances and psychological stress on them because of the supervisor words. Remember, your word is so powerful. As a supervisor, whatever our word is so meaningful to the students. So that's why in the previous one, try to put positive word that encourage them to do more, rather than to put negative that kill the motivation and the emotion. So I think there is just sharing, the feedback areas that I usually use as my framework when I give feedback to to my students. So I try to avoid this one, but I will emphasize on this one, and this one, the three compared to the. Yeah, so far, do you have anything to share in terms of feedback? How do you give feedback to your students? Anyone? How do you give feedback to your students? Okay, the student did not make changes. Okay. How do you give feedback to the students? Oh. Okay. Okay, never mind. Maybe everything clear. Okay, so basically, album email with track changes. Okay. So you have your own. Hopefully, the sharing will be, somehow verify, or maybe something that can, if you have not yet have a framework, maybe it can be used as your framework, or maybe you already have your own framework in giving feedback. Okay, never mind, as long as you have feedback. Okay. Now the fifth one, the fifth one. So we have done with the feedback just now. The fifth one is accountability, require accountability. So basically, we are trying to create a culture, okay, a culture where our supervisees hold certain accountability in their research. Okay, this is something that is very important to highlight to them, because individual responsibility and taking responsibility on their journey to the end of to the end of the journey is very important, because just like if the supervisor give the guidance and give advice, give um, just like a road map to you, but if you don't follow, if let's say the supervisor don't follow, or maybe you have taken different path, maybe it's very difficult because we go to different direction. So taking care of whatever has been planned, and then put the accountability on the students as as a kind of training for them to be a responsible person, as a researcher, or as a person, or as a team player, will be very, very important. Because when we create the culture, if we put the culture of being accountable in whatever we have, as a team, so it will give a lot of benefits One is when create the culture, it will influence the attitude and the values that will be developed our candidate. Because, for example, let's say we talk about a PhD. So I always emphasize to the students that as a PhD, holder later on, you need to have the attributes of a scholar. So you need to have the values of the scholar. That's why you need to be responsibility, and then you need to be accountable to whatever you have to be. Because if I don't see that at the end of the of the journey, I might not be able to endorse your thesis. So I clearly spell out that kind of accountability when I first meet them. So the expectation will be clearly spelled out between the students and the supervisor. And sometimes, due to the culture, is influence their spirituality as well. To that will help in terms of the well-being. Because sometimes we give hopes, giving meanings to the life, meanings to the journey, and they know what the direction in their, in their journey as uh, of PhD student, that we give kind of spirituality to them. Spirituality is not religiosity here, but the motivation, that knowing why they want to do this PhD, making them aware of the reasons why they are in this program and many more. And then if we put the culture correctly as well, that will influence their ambition as well and their drive as well to success in their journey. Sometimes depending on who they are, if they are future educators, so that will be something as a driver for them to be better during in the journey. Sometimes maybe they are going to be a researcher, so that kind of motivation will give them maybe they want to be an excellent researcher after this 2 to 5 years journey in PhD or maybe the master later on. And then the other part is when put the culture, give accessibility to them. Because why? Because the accessibility will create the opportunity for them to thrive in different contexts. In different contexts, because we put them accountable. So once they are able to be, to have accountable in one context, that attitude and then values will be transferred to the other context as well, because the values will be similar, and then that will create a better better students once they graduated under our supervision. So creating the right culture in our during the supervision under our supervision is very, very important as well. Okay, so there is something that trying to create, but still learning. I'm still learning as well to create a good culture. What's the best culture? And because different students have a different, belief, different motivation, different drive of their ambitions toward something that because they are adult anyway. Because once adult, they have a specific reason why they are with us and why they want to pursue postgraduate studies under our supervision. So basically, trying to our best to create the culture. And if you have more students, basically you can develop a collective culture within your students by having a group WhatsApp among your students, and then let them interact and let them communicate and do helping each other and so on and so forth. I think we can have a different way, but creating the culture is very important. Then number 6, based on the recommendation is verify potential. So we have just now, we have this one, just now the culture part, I put them on the accountability, and now we want to verify the potential. So this is where we need to create an atmosphere of comfort, not comfort, but at least non-threatening atmosphere, acceptable atmosphere for them to thrive. For them to thrive. Because, for example, let's say we need to provide our candidate opportunity to succeed. For example, let's say we go to conference. This is a very basic example. We have grant, and then we allocate certain certain money for conference, and then we have certain things that we need to present because it's part of the KPI, for example. Why not let them present the paper rather than the supervisor? let them having the opportunity to present the papers, and then supervisor give feedback after they presented the papers to the audience. And then the other part is giving opportunity for them to fill in research proposal for grant. For example, I did previously this because maybe the nature of my area is based on the student proposal. So based on the student proposal, what I did, I empower them to fill up the grant form. For example, if we decided to apply FRGS, example, FRGS, so I will allow them to fill in the FRGS form, just to provide a platform and opportunity for them to, to have a feeling, as a scholar by filling up the grant. But later on, we need to, we need to revise lah. We need to revise. But with the initial part, let them do it. That's what I do with the student, because when they do it, basically I can see that, okay, they have a certain ability, they have a certain potential, that they know that what is executive summary, what are expected, kind of literature review when we put the grant, and the methodology, and so on and so forth. And at least they have gone through the process of grant application for getting some budget, some financial assistance to support the project, and so on and so forth. And particularly when the budget part, I allow them to put the vote, okay, plan according to your vote and put everything. So that kind of that kind of opportunity, and under safe environment, it's not non-threatening environment for them to fill in the form, will create something, we call it the atmosphere of hope and confidence as a researcher later on. And I do get a lot of feedback from the student that now I know the first time, because the first time that they fill up any grant form, and that's kind of give a lot of motivation to them, kind of lot of motivation. And definitely as a supervisor, we need to supervise whatever they write. Sometimes we need to rewrite whatever they wrote, but those are the process and opportunity we give to them as much as possible, because that basically create something that they can show and demonstrate the potential as a future scholar. So, and this is something that that I always remind myself: talent can't be taught, because talent is there, but it can be awakened. And hopefully, I always hope that when I give opportunity to them, just to verify the potential, hopefully there are certain hidden talent inside the candidates will be awakened. That is my aim, because sometimes talent we cannot see. No, as a candidate, they couldn't see the talent, but as a supervisor, we.
Kalau yang dalam bilik tulisan, Abdi nak baca ni.
Okay, so there is something about not verified potential. The talent must.
Dah beli dah tu, post mai.
Okay.
Dalam bilik ada, jangan. Dia suruh tinggal sebulan.
Post apa tu? Sekejap lah. Asal nak kena mute tu, dia terlepas. Okay, ada nak komen apa-apa ke setakat ni? Ada lah setakat ni. Dan nombor 6 ni ada 4 lagi. Oh, kita dah 11:20 dah. Okay, so there is something that I would like to share in terms of verified potential. So hopefully let's aim to awaken the talent, the candidate talent, by giving the opportunity. Giving right opportunity for them usually, give something for them to prove that they are better, they are better than what they think. Number 7, okay, there is something that instill independent. So this is quite interesting note as well, because a lot of question is how much independent we want to instill to the student. How we going to delegate independency in our students. So basically, what I do is based on the diagram. They just more or less a framework for me to gauge the level of guidance that the need students and the level of ability of the student have at that particular time point. Okay, so basically, when I see a student, how I will decide I want to give less autonomy, more autonomy. So it mean that if less autonomy, it mean that a lot of guidance from me. If more autonomy, it mean that less guidance from me, but the student will be able to carry out on their own. So from the first meeting, usually when they're registered, from the first meeting, I will always be clear with them. So basically, in the first, in the first semester or the second semester, you will expect I'm going to guide you a lot. I'm going to guide you a lot because sometimes there are certain students. For example, my student is basically the dean of a medical school in Pakistan, and and the dean and the candidate is already professor. I'm not even professor. The candidate is already a professor and the dean of a medical school in one of the university in Pakistan. So basically, because I know that the candidate have ability to be independent from the beginning. From the beginning, I know. Okay, but I negotiate with the candidate. Is that okay if for the first semester and second semester I will give more guidance just to ensure that your proposal in the right direction. So because we need to respect the candidate is a professor and a medical dean. Is a dean of a medical school. Okay, we need to give respect. Even though we are supervisor, we acknowledge the student ability. Maybe they have more experience, they are more able than the supervisor. That's okay. But the first place, let me get you, is that okay? So I draw this diagram with that candidate. For other candidate is quite clear. They need more guidance. But this kind of candidate, we need to be very clear that right, okay, this is the guidance level and ability of the student to be independent. So I said the first few semester initially I will guide you a lot because the area is new to you. Even though I know you have a lot of experience, but the area is new to you, and the nature of the research is new to you as well. So I need to guide you on the right direction. And then after that, I will gradually, gradually put the guidance level less and lesser. Then you'll be more independent, and you need to expect the less guidance from me, but I can always be there if you need me. So so throughout the years, and then the student ability increase. That mean that we can allow the student to be independent, and the guidance level also we taper down a little bit and allow them to be independent. And toward the end, I always say to my student, toward the end, if you are not able to show that you are independent candidates, even though it's already 3 years, I mean that 6 semester. So I think that is a warning signal. There's a signal telling that you are not doing enough. Your ability is not reached to certain expectation that allow you to be independent researcher later on, if you are PhD, or maybe independent, or maybe quite competent candidate to be passed or for the thesis submission and so on and so forth. So this is a kind of framework that guide me. If you think that this framework is is acceptable, you can use it, or maybe you can modify accordingly. But what I'm sharing here is basically is how we can decide whether to allow the student to be independent, or semi-independent, or total independent. So this is kind of a rough guide that I can share with you based on my current practice. Do you have any question with regard to this issue? Because I have been, I have been told that there are certain supervisors having difficulty to, to balance between how much guides and how much independent you want to give to the students. So hopefully this diagram is helpful for you to to gauge how much that you need to give guidance to your supervisors later on. Let me check your chat. Lepas pandang, need to pause and reflect, suggest how to reduce or prevent that. So need to have a good collaboration or supervisor team. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. We need to use our supervisor team to help us if you are main supervisor. Definitely. Okay, so if silent mean you understand, so make it a positive. Silent mean you got the message. Okay, now number 8. Okay, the number 8 is shared continuously. So this is something that I always do with my students, and the student also do with me. For example, let's say just a simple sharing. For example, I read articles, then I know that the article is related to the students. Okay, related to the students, and then I will definitely share the article with the students as well to other students through email or through WhatsApp group whatsoever. And then the other part is I'm trying to listen. So another shared part is I'm trying to listen from the candidates, from the supervisees' perspective. And perhaps those are basically something that kind of let them share, whatever they like to share as long as within the boundaries, okay, within the boundaries. And when we share, we need to be as much as possible transparent with them, because if we share something that is not transparent, I think that's create a lot of problem after that. For example, let's say you share a data, for example, share a data from a previous study, okay, from previous study, and we need to let the student know you cannot use this data for your publication, okay, because this is your previous for your senior, for example, this is your senior data, because what I'm sharing here is about examples, giving example to you on how to put the data. Or maybe sometimes we want to share the candidate's finding. For example, we want to share candidate findings with maybe other supervisors, other supervisors. So we need to be transparent with the student. You need to declare to students, so can I, share your data with other supervisors just for their reference, or maybe with other colleagues in the department, other colleague departments. Can I share your findings with the rest of the department, because they are interested to see your results, because the result will give some idea to them on what to do at the department level. So there is an example of shared continuously, being transparent. But I would like to emphasize on listening skill, because when we are listening to candidates, okay, when you are listening to candidate, for example, let's say you have now is a one-to-one meeting with your candidates, and this is something common that I did with my candidate. I always have one-to-one meeting, either physically, face-to-face, or maybe you put on the digital platform, the online. And right now, I think most commonly I do for the online meeting, just like now, it's online meeting. And the most important one is we need to be look as interested and get interested to whatever the students are sharing with us. Look interested, and then do not do anything else lah. Basically, sometimes we do something else, isn't it? Even though we are in front of this candidate, but we are still chatting with someone else on the WhatsApp, whatsoever. But sometimes, if the message is so important, let the candidate know. Okay, please, can you stop for a while? I need to entertain an urgent message, from my dean. For example, I always say that. Can we stop for a while? I want to listen to you, but I need to attend one important, urgent, matters with my dean. So please stop. So, just to ensure that the student know that we are listening to them. Okay, and then we need to involve ourselves by responding to them. So for example, let's say the student gives something, do not give a blunt face whatsoever. At least smile and nodding. That is a good enough for you. Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay, what else? So yes, anything or why? So that is kind of responding to ensure that the the students feel that you are listening to them. Okay, and then the other part is stay on target. I mean that we need to really sometimes, if you have a note, you can jot down the point made by candidates. But if you could remember what they say, just filter something that's really important that you need to ask the candidate afterward. So because we want to stay on the target. And then, for example, just now, if let's say the student has dwelling a lot more on the problems rather than the academic, maybe we can say that, okay, I know your problems, and then I don't see that your problems are really, really relevant in this context. You would like to, to tell me more about your current progress rather than your problem. So, stay on target. That's why we need to listen. We want to ensure that everything stay on target. Otherwise, if we don't put that kind of stay on target, the students will take the chance and telling the problems rather than the progress. Problems rather than progress. We are interested on the progress and what next that we can do together as a team. And then sometimes we need to test our understanding. For example, let's say the students say that I have problem with my writing. Okay, that's good, writing, but maybe we can test. You mean your writing what? Your paper, your thesis, or what? So just to check our understanding. Oh no, doctor, not the paper, but the thesis. Okay. So you are talking about the thesis right now, not the article. So sometimes we need to test our understanding by asking them as well. And then evaluate the message. Yeah, very important. Sometimes the message not clear enough, and then it's ambiguous. And then sometimes they're trying to sidetracking based on the main agenda, because usually during the meeting we have agenda with our candidate, isn't it? So the agenda, for example, one, we would like to see what's your progress right now. And the second one is what is your next next move, your next plan, or maybe if not yet progress, what your plan to rectify the unprogressive unprogressive plan. And is basically neutralize your feelings. So it is very important. Sometimes the candidates, because the candidate sometimes not so mature, you get a kind of immature candidate. They are telling you, oh doktor, doktor kata dulu lain, sekarang lain. Sometimes, because our previous advice, we told them that, okay, you need to do A, B, C. But afterward, we already did A, B, C, but doesn't work, doctor. So how? So, that is a kind of mencabar juga lah kan. So, we need to neutralize your feeling and be as much as possible to not look for solution, not to express your anger or dissatisfaction, or you attack the candidate and say, oh, I told you blah 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 blah, isn't it? I told you already, you have already this, but now you don't listen to me, and now blah blah blah. So yeah, it's good to tell them the truth, but it's good to try to neutralize your feelings, so that is do not get to criticize. It's more toward feedback. Criticize is one way, and personal attack, but the feedback, we want to get a solution out of the problem that we face together. So there's a lot of problem, definitely, but how are we going to face together with the candidates as a team? Okay. And number 9, is optimize ownership. So after we already done with this part, okay, check continuously, we need to ensure that the candidate feel that this is their project. Okay, that even though sometimes there are certain things they are already just doing our project because it's under our grant, but somehow we need to instill that they are important, and a part of this project is theirs, you know. So optimizing the ownership of the candidate to the project is very important so that it will keep them motivation and momentum to complete the journey as well as to complete the project, for research project. And the other part is perhaps, you know, it's good if you can encourage risk taking. For example, let's say putting the budget, you know, putting the budget. Even though we have our own budget, but it's always good for them to, okay, why don't you, you know, put your own budget? So risk taking basically putting the budget because the planning part. What you want to do? What if, let's say, the budget is not enough? How are you going to settle that? And then many more. There is something, you know, will increase the ownership as well. And sometimes, if let's say the grant was obtained based on the candidate proposal, because there are certain field, we depend on the candidate proposal. Particularly in my area, usually we encourage the candidate give their own proposal, and based on their own proposal, we will look at the opportunity, any opportunity basically to get funding, and based on that funding, so basically the ownership is theirs because the idea. But in terms of risk taking is when we, you know, when we put the budget as well as the you know, the potential not getting financial because it's a kind of their project, that will be another training for them to, you know, to ensure that this is your project, and then whatever happen is their own accountability but supervised by a supervisor. And then we always put somehow, let's say in the condition that they couldn't get any financial, you know, financial support. That's happened to my candidate as well. For example, let's say we discuss with them, okay, let's say your proposal won't get any support and none of the grant are going to support you. How are you going to, how are you going to deal with this? How are you going to deal with this? But fortunately, most of the candidates who are not feeling that this is theirs, they say, "Don't worry, doctor, because if let's say we couldn't get a grant for this, I have another option because I can get some, you know, some money to support this project." Not from the university or whatsoever. So from the industry, for example, there are certain link that will be able to support this project as well. So this is a kind of example of optimized ownership to to the project that the students are doing. And the other part is when we do, for example, decision making in our project. We involve them, we involve them in the decision making, for example, in the meeting, in the important presentation, important, grant defend and ethics defend and many more. So let them defend the grant or maybe the ethics rather than the supervisor. Allow them to defend their proposal. So because by defending the proposal, that will optimize the ownership of the project and then the proposal as well. So this is a kind of example that we can increase the ownership. Once the student feel that they own the project, and usually the student will be more motivated, more independent, and they are more determined to complete the project compared to the students who just like hired to be RO, they are just doing the RO things rather than the postgraduate things. So maybe the motivation will be, not similar to those who are feeling that they own the project rather than they work for the project. So this is something that based on the point number 9. So as a supervisor, we try our best to create opportunity, to create activities, or to involve them, the candidates, as part of the team, so that they can see that they are part of the honor of this project. Okay, so basically nothing is more expensive than a missed opportunity. I mean that the opportunity we give to them, supervisor, to contribute to the project, that will increase the ownership of them within the team. That will, will be a very good learning experience for them as a postgraduate student. And the opportunity, the opportunity that we give to them is very important, because why? Because the opportunity will basically will actualize individual potential, because we ask them to defend, we ask them to draft the budget, we ask them to to suggest any other source of fundings to fund the project. We ask them to be part of the team and play active role in the project. And this will create, one is we harness their learning, definitely, because of opportunity. Then they learn better because they're part of the team. And then we will recognize them as person who are responsible in this project. Without them, the project will fail. That kind of ownership they would like to impose on their mindset. And then perhaps, sometimes when we give the students this kind of opportunity, the right place and the right time, that will create opportunity for them to be in a new direction as well in their life. For example, or maybe previously they just join this project just for the sake of getting degree, but later on, due to the opportunity we give to them, due to the the ownership that we give to them, they feel that, oh, I'm going to be a great researcher like my supervisor. I want to be like that. Maybe I can contribute this, or maybe I can pursue my study further when I graduated and many more. So there's a kind of encouragement that we can create in the future. And then perhaps sometimes with all this opportunity, because because they have been given opportunity to defend, to be part, to write, to plan, and to get involved in the decision making for the project. So there is something that will help to the career growth later on, to be maybe a scholar, or maybe a lecturer, or maybe a researcher industry, or whatever the career they choose in the future. That sometimes can be a very satisfying to them, because at the end of the postgraduate study, they got all this valuable experience that has been given to them by the supervisor to grow. Okay, and last but not least, this is number 10. Oh, before that, do you have anything to ask before we go for the final point? Do you have anything to share, or maybe any question regarding the 9 points that we have discussed just now? Do you have anything? Let me check. Do you have anything else? Okay. Silent mean okay. Okay. So let's go to number 10. Okay. Reinforce the relationship. So this is where sometimes I don't know, maybe there are certain people are not not comfortable, but there are certain people comfortable to reinforce relationship. So what it means that we share something that within our boundaries, and we taking care of our supervisors. Two things is maybe getting to know what motivates our supervisors, and then perhaps we need to give a room for our supervisor to share their personal or family accomplishment, for example. So that is something that is not compulsory, but just to reinforce the relationship, this kind of the social thing, the interaction, the interpersonal and intrapersonal interaction between supervisors, and the supervisor will help, to strengthen the relationship. But this one, I think, is not something that depending on the supervisor's preference, basically the point number 10. But it's always recommended to have this kind of, you know, um, professional and then relationship between, including the personal and family things. That is something. Maybe you have a different point of view on this, but I try my best to put that kind of relationship as well, but in a professional manner, because the first point, getting to know what motivate supervisor. I think that's from my experience. Yes, that's help. When we understand our candidates, we know what motivate the candidates. We know what demotivate the candidates, so we can play can play our roles in a better way, so that we can help them to to be in the motivated mood rather than demotivated mood. And sometimes all this motivation, though it seems that not so important, but in terms of psychological well-being, that is very important. That is very important, because this kind of support really make difference when the supervisors do care about other things than academic, the non-academic things. And then perhaps create the opportunity for someone to share their personal family. You can give a session at the end of your meetings with the supervisor. Example that I used to ask them. The question that I regularly ask them, okay, so what are things that you like to share with me, something either personal or family, that you think when you tell me about that, that will give meaning, that will help me to be a better supervisor. So I ask the candidate always, anything, your personal or family, that you tell me, so that I can take note and I can become a better supervisor that can supervise you in a better way. So that is something, that I ask the candidates, whether sometimes candidate do not share, definitely, the candidate do not share, but sometimes the candidate do share. They think that, yes, doctor, saya dapat anak baru, kan, there is something, sometimes kita tak tahu pun, kan, dapat anak baru sebab because the candidate is husband, kan, husband. So sometimes husband we don't see pregnant ke apa semua, kan. So say that I just got a new baby, and then with the new baby, my commitment I will be more to my new baby, because for the first 3 months after delivery, I have to take care of the wife. I need to take care of the baby as well, and then I might not be able to see you as usual, and many more. So sometimes all this information, even though not directly related, but it's important. Really important, but important to show that we are, we are human, basically, and then we do share all these events, the life events with the candidate. And sometimes we just say that, oh, congratulations to your new baby. Okay, take time. No worry. If you need me, just let me WhatsApp in. And if you need to see me, you can go for online. No problem. You don't have to come face to face. Online can can serve the purpose as well. Or if you want to to have a more time, let me know. Or we want to more time into our due date, because sometimes we work on due date, isn't it? The candidate must submit by next month, but due to that situation, can I submit a bit delay? So no problem, you can negotiate all those. When we consider all these factors, sometimes the life event factors that affecting the motivation as well as the well-being of our candidates. So It's up to you. There is kind of just sharing of one of the supervisor's skill that perhaps is good for us to develop as well. And I'm trying to develop all this as well, but still learning anyway. Okay, so nothing reinforces a professional relationship more than enjoying success with someone. So basically sampaikan ada setengah tu because the children, usually the children have got all A's in their SPM. So, and suddenly we already, plan for a meeting, for example, for a meeting with the candidate, but because the family already planned for a big celebration, so you're going to holiday for example, and the holiday is unfortunately, overlap with our meeting with the candidate. So then usually the candidate say, Doktor, saya minta maaf because yes, I know I already set the time with you, but the family decided now blah blah blah, and unfortunately is on the day that we should meet. Can we change the mode of meeting rather than face to face to the online meeting? It would be okay for you, Doctor? So that kind of negotiation, and usually because they are celebrating as a good moment in the family and many more. Usually I say, okay, no problem. Online is also okay. And even you want to postpone another date, also okay, no problem. As long as you are happy. So that kind of, reinforcing a relationship, and we trying to be as human as possible when it's become to all this kind of personal and family accomplishment that they think is far more important than the meeting with the supervisor. So don't have I always keep to myself, don't give any hard feeling, because if anything can be postponed without jeopardizing anything on in the plan whatsoever, then why not? We just shift the event a bit later. But if something very important, we need to tell to the candidates properly lah, basically. So be firm on the task. Okay. At this moment, okay, because I plan for 30 minutes for discussion, so I will stop at 12. I have another few slides just to conclude the session. Now, why supervisor? So basically, if you put everything together, so it's become supervisor. So SUPER. So basically, the mnemonic itself will become your the skill: support growth, unite, praise, expect excellence, require accountability, verify potential, instill independent, share continuously, optimize, relate ownership, and reinforce relationship. So basically, a supervisor. So there's a mnemonic. Okay. Then why supervisor matters? Okay. Why supervisor skill? Because one of the article 2018, I just quote from Brennan, choice of supervisor is probably the most crucial decision in a postgraduate journey, as a good supervisor can make or break the learning experience. So that's why it's very important to be in the positive sides of the our postgraduate student journey, because if let's say if we can become a good supervisor, that basically will give advantage to us to get more students in the future. Because sometimes the candidates will spread the good things about you to their colleagues, and then therefore the colleagues will approach you. Sometimes even our ex-students, recommend to their colleagues for example, in other university, to have us as a supervisor. Because why? Because the candidate have a very good learning experience during their postgraduate journey. Why not to become one of them? And there is something that if we do good, you will good things. What goes around, it comes around. What you give, you get back, isn't it? So all this basically will help us in the future as well to build our own career as an academician. Because if you get more students without without having us to do a lot of things, because this is basically passive, just like passive income lah, basically. Not really passive income, but sometimes people recommend the candidate to go to our university because of us. Okay, because of us. Because I think most of the postgraduate students will look at the supervisor, particularly PhD student. They want supervisor. So this is something that Benon mentioned as well. One of the tips that was now popular among postgraduate is find former students supervised by your target supervisor and check out the strength and weakness of the supervisor. So now, for the postgraduate students, particularly at the PhD level, they are not looking at the university per se. They are looking at who will be the supervisor and how they will pick up all the good things or the bad things about the supervisor is from the former students. If the former student have a very good experience with us, so definitely you will get more students. And perhaps you have a surplus student until, sometimes you need to say no. So there are so many students that that approach you, want to be with you, and many more. But if you do vice versa, you give a very bad learning experience to your postgrad students, they will say that no, do not go to the supervisor because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, whatsoever lah, the reason. So, and because of that, maybe maybe we will get less student or no student at all, because the former students, our former students already make a clear remarks on any platform that they are connected all over the world, about the quality of supervision that we provide to our candidates. So this is something that we need to keep in mind, why supervisory skill is important. And then that is something, if we really realize the power of supervisory skills for the future candidates and applicants under our supervision, then I think it's worthwhile for us to consider to develop ourselves to become a better supervisor. Maybe not the best supervisor, doesn't matter. It's not about the best, but it's about to become a better supervisor from time to time. And hopefully, at certain level, we will become the best supervisor that every single candidate want to be under our supervision when they are decided to, to pursue postgraduate studies in at least USM lah, even though not under university, in USM context at least. Yes. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? Okay. Give me 2 minutes because I need to do something. Okay, 2 minutes. Yes, anything? Yes. Perhaps I'm going to I have another slide, I think. Yeah. Don't worry, I will share this PowerPoint with everyone through a link. Yes, anything. We have another 30 minutes for you to share anything that you wish. Okay. Any feedback? So maybe you can give based on the 10 just now. How can be motivated? How to keep motivated? Sometimes you can be disheartened. So anything. Any response from other participant? How to keep motivated? Okay, motivated as a supervisor or as a um, I think supervisor, isn't it? Motivated supervisor. Yeah. Yeah. Any thoughts from supervisor? Any feedback? Any comment from other participants? Would you like to share your thoughts how to keep motivated as a supervisor? Online learning. Anyone? Okay, so maybe because everyone's quiet. So one of maybe ask students feedback and what they like best on our solution to keep motivated. Yes, remember just now that I share with you. This one, for example, the best experience. So this is something that if you read through, I think somehow it will keep me motivated. For example, here Dr. knows his subject very well. Doubt questions, put trust in his supervisors, make me feel free to finish up my thesis, didn't push me unnecessarily, didn't push me unnecessarily because we give the ownership, we give independence, we give just what they need and let me work independently. All this basically, if you see the comment, is something that related to the supervisory skill, something that I shared with you. To tell you the truth, I'm also still learning about the 10 supervisor skill, but I try my best to practice as much as possible with my candidates. And at the same time, always available for guidance. Yeah, definitely the accessibility. I can reach him at any time through online. So see, all this basically interesting. If you can see the best experience. This is something that the student really appreciate about us as a supervisor. And all this basically because we have a framework to work as a supervisor. And whatever I shared with you, that is something that I try my best to keep practice. You know? And so far, from my own experience, based on the 10 supervisory skill that I have learned before, that one also I have learned from someone that I share and put in the context only. I can see my the way the students progress, the way the student give feedback, and the way of students appreciate our efforts. Totally different from what I did when I was just just a new supervisor, just a new supervisor, and I can see that you know I can see that the lot less comment on this worst experience, less comment. We can see that the worst experience getting less and less. Previously, I got a lot of comment as well in the worst experience, but not in this formula, because this form is I just created early of this year because I know already use the e-form. But previously, I just put on piece of paper, what the best experience, what the worst experience, your personal advice. We ask the student to give advice on how can we improve further as a supervisor, and then what should I keep as a supervisor. So all this basically increasing, all this part increasing, but this part less, and this part is getting less and less. This one as well getting less and less. So sometimes the advice is helping us as well to get some idea on what to do. For example, this one. Can you share personal advice to me so that I can be a better supervisor? So this kind of, I can see that when we do this regularly, basically reinforce relationship and reinforce the trust between the supervisors and supervisee, and particularly the supervisee's trust on the supervisor. So I like you sharing session and your concern about my weakness. So there are certain candidates like us to pinpoint their weaknesses, but due to sometimes personal reason, I do not like to highlight the weaknesses rather than I put it in a positive way. So, but there are certain candidates ask me, just be truthful. Just tell us what's my weaknesses. So, if I'm doing things wrongly, please don't hesitate to advise me directly. There are certain candidates, though I give indirect advice. There are certain candidates do not like indirect advice. They want to put, okay, if wrong, okay, tell A, B, C, D, E. There are certain candidates on like that. But our preference, the personal preference as a human, do not like to give a direct advice rather than give a different way of advice, but still advice. But you can see from this feedback. This is how we, example of how we can improve ourselves and keep motivated, and so on and so forth. Okay, so maybe can you share your feedback form? Okay, I will share. I will share. Conduct a group meeting or supervisory, have a potluck, discuss, listen, laugh informally to keep a positive vibe and motivated. Yes, I did this before. Sometimes I ask, for example, let's say the candidate, the candidate have around in the campus. Usually, I ask them to come and have makan-makan, some makan-makan at my house. Okay, makan-makan at my house. That is quite interesting as well. That's quite interesting as well. Not so bad. And during makan-makan, they bring something else. They cook. They can cook biryani, can cook macam-macam lah. A lot of things they can do, and then bring to my house, and then we eat together. And we know their kids. There are so many kids. There are so many things. That's a good. My experience with our students, I think having potluck, informal discussion, makan-makan is a good way lah. Basically to keep us motivated, one, to keep the student motivated as well, and to strengthen the trust between supervisor and supervisees. And sometimes because of that, they feel that they need to work harder. Because of that, the candidate think they need to work harder because you know what? Because we are very kind to them, but we are very tough on the issues. We are very tough. Okay, yeah. Wait. Okay, so okay, I think it seems that no more. Maybe I can conclude because 20 minutes before the session end, you need to fill up feedback form provided by CDE. Betul kan Wani kan? Wani?
Betul doktor, betul.
Isn't it? 20 minutes before they need to fill up the feedback form.
I
So I
will share
think
the link now in the
okay,
chat box.
let's share the
Okay.
link now. But while while Wani sharing the link, maybe final note from me is TOCS, TOCS. So TOCS mean that the first thing when we become supervisor, you cannot remember everything. Just remember these 4 things. Okay. Just remember 4 things. Oh, someone WhatsApp group for all my PhD. They need to share their progress regularly in the group. Seminar presentation on their progress between all my supervisors. Please fill up. Okay. Yes, I think I do agree with Tazida as well, because I myself have the WhatsApp group for all my PhD students, not only USM, you know. In my WhatsApp group, including students from outside USM. I include as well. For example, I have PhD student from UTP. I have PhD student from OUM. I have PhD student from other, other courses, not only my courses, and many more. So I put them together. Just a matter of to give a different flavor from different people, from different institutions, and from different courses as well. I have, because sometimes I'm co-supervised with other candidates, so I include them under the PhD, PhD group as well, similar to Dr. Azidah mentioned just now. And it works. Fortunately, it works. So it's good lah. They are not quarreling whatsoever. They are complementing each other, and they are sharing notes as well. They're sharing notes, particularly if, let's say, they got a good workshop, so they will share on the group. Maybe they get a good article that is commonly applicable to everyone. They share as well. Dr. Azida, can you speak?
Malas nak cakap, Dr. Saiful.
Itulah. Boleh je. So, see, one of the participants, may I know how regular students need to present their progress?
Okay, depends on their stage, the stage of their study lah. Okay, like within 3 months should be okay. Meaning that within 3 months you make like internal, within your supervisors, a meeting within your supervisors, and ask them who will be able to present their progress to other supervisors. And then it is not kita tak paksa lah mereka, we don't force them, but we encourage them to share. And I think when you start them sharing, they will be able to freely share what they are doing, because they know that they have some recommendations, suggestions from their own friends. The students who already passed their proposal will be able to help the students who are in the earlier stage of the program. And I think that it is very effective for my students. I have 14 PhD students at the moment, and I really need that particular group to be helping each other to make sure that everybody's having a good progress. So I think that, because this is what my supervisors do during my PhD. We had a lunch discussions, and we discuss our progress within us, the PhD students. And I think it is a very effective, because, PhD or Masters by Research, it is a very lonely journey. All right. So when we discuss within our friends, under the same supervisors, it is really good that we know that we are getting there. So yeah, that is what I did lah for my students. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. Yes, one of the question now from undefined. I do not know who is undefined. During my PhD study, we need to present our progress to panels every semester, but it's not the scenario in USM. Shall we propose that to our school so that students will work harder and they need to present their progress continuously? Okay, I'm not. Who is commenting this one? Undefined. Who is undefined? Let me check. Who is undefined? Undefined. Oh, still undefined. So very difficult to define it now. Never mind. But there's a good good comment as well. Oh, Solihah here. Okay. Solihah, would you like to say something on your comment?
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Saiful.
Waalaikumsalam. So yes, please share.
I don't know why, because always undefined. I don't know how to change to Solihah actually.
You need to define yourself.
That's why I keep asking people, but I still cannot change from undefined to my name.
Okay, never mind. Okay, yes, go ahead. Your comment.
During my study, during my PhD study at UiTM Shah Alam, every semester we need to present our progress, not to our supervisor, but to our panels. And it always makes us scared lah, because if we don't have progress and the panel will ask us so many questions, and then we get worried on that, so we work hard on after that. And sometimes
Okay.
the comment from the panel also quite disappointed, and some of us sometimes beat down after a few weeks, only then they move up.
Okay. So that's quite sounds like scary.
Yes, correct. That's why we need
Okay.
to have a progress every semester.
Okay. So basically, I don't know the other school practice, but in PPSP, okay, in PPSP we have quite a regular we call it progress presentation by PPSP, by the school, as well as by department. So we have two level. The school is under Timbalan Dekan postgraduate, and the school is under department, under the program chairperson. And usually we have two level of program presentation, but the program presentation is not like a very serious one. It's very non-threatening progress report presentation, just to know what they are doing now, and is there any challenges that they face, or is there anything that departments or the school could help them to facilitate their progress. And then their personal feedback to the department or the school as a supervisors, as a candidates who are learning in the USM. So that's kind of not very tough, but the kind of looking at the student progress. But even though for us it's not tough, but for the candidate, they still think that it's a tough time because sometimes we can ask as well some question about if they are not progress. Okay, so perhaps any more sharing that you like to share? Otherwise, I want to conclude. Okay, allow me to conclude. This is my last slide. Okay, so my final note is one is T. The T is about time. I think you can see that as a supervisor, regardless of our how busy we are, and we need to to give sufficient time to our supervisees, because we need to support them, and the only thing that we have need to support them is our time. So give time to our supervisee so that they feel that they have no times for them to either to do progress or to report their achievement or to meet us, or maybe to sometimes they just want to vent something that they need us to know, and many more. So give time, allocate time. And the second one is I think opportunity. So opportunity to supervise is very important, because part of the that's a part of the way that we want to unleash the potential, and sometimes to verify the potential as well, because we are producing the next generation of of qualified people with the degree, and hopefully by finishing all this training, going through the learning experience under our supervision, particularly in the postgraduate context, I hope the opportunity is sufficient enough to grow them, to support, to support their learning so that they can unleash their potential to the maximum level that they can be, for the candidates. So opportunity is very important to be provided. And C is about the culture. I think as many of us mentioned and Dr. Aziza mentioned as well, the culture when he was supervised under one supervisor. So sometimes that culture will set another culture when the graduates graduated from our program. Then if the good culture, so it will grow a good culture in other place. But if you put a bad culture, and hopefully the bad culture will not be transferred to a new place, because the culture will provide a different impact on the candidates, and particularly if the good culture, definitely will grow more good things afterward. And last but not least is strength. Sometimes do not dwell on so much on the weaknesses, and try to tap on individual strength of our candidates, because by tapping on the strengths, hopefully they will use the strengths and they will cover and they will reduce the weaknesses that the candidate has. So one, the strength growing, and hopefully the weaknesses slowly tapered down, and hopefully those process will be able to support their growth and ownership with the learning journey and learning experience as well. So I think these are 4 things I would like to highlight at the end of the supervisory scheme. Times, opportunity, set a good culture, and tap on the individual strengths of our candidates will be something that we need to try our best as a supervisor. And I think thank you so much. And then you can download this PowerPoint. Let me share the link of PowerPoint on the chat board. Okay, this is the link. PowerPoint slides can be downloaded from. Okay, you can and you can share this PowerPoint, and you can know if you think that it is useful, beneficial, you can use it, and you can present it to your colleagues who are not attending, or even your department, school, whatsoever in any platform. It's a freely available material for you to use, and hopefully it can create more more things, more good things to others who are not attending, who do not have time to attend today. So I think that's all from me. Wani, nanti share link yang saya bagi tu yang form tu, feedback form pada semua juga nanti. Wani ada tak ni?
Okey, Dr. Saiful.
Nanti share dengan dengan link yang PowerPoint yang saya bagi ni juga.
Boleh.
Okay, nanti share pada dia orang semua. Okay, so I think is there any last comment from participants? Anything that you like to to share before we end our session? Hopefully, whatever I have shared just now is something beneficial to everyone, and definitely there are a lot of things that I might miss, but I try to make it as simple as possible so that is practical enough for you to try and to feel the outcomes of the 10 supervisory skills that I already shared with you just a moment ago. Okay, there's anything that you like to ask? Otherwise, we can end our session and have our lunch. No question? No more comment? Nothing? No. Okay. Okay. So I got the message. Everyone hungry. Okay. Thank you so much. So thank you so much. And anything that lacking part, I apologize for that. And then if anything that you like to, to ask after this, you can email me. And then the PowerPoint is yours. You can share to anyone. And then hopefully see you again the next webinar if we arrange one. And last but not least, thank you for listening and for participating in this webinar, and hope that you already learned a lot from whatever we have discussed. So thank you so much. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. Thank you, Dr. Saiful.